Hey listeners, did you know that YogiTriathlete offers endurance coaching for body and mind? We offer personalized training plans for endurance sports, wellness and mindset, nutrition and recovery guidance, and race preparation and strategy, all within the supportive community of Team YogiTriathlete. So if you're ready to conquer your fitness goals and push your limits, our endurance coaches are ready to guide you on the journey to peak performance. Go to yogitriathlete.com today to set up your free 30-minute discovery call and embrace a future of strength, stamina, and achievement. Your goals, our experience, the perfect match for unstoppable success.
What really drew me in was the focus on the mind. And I said, that is what I need. Anybody can train my body, but what I really need is somebody that can train my mind and get my mind to be calm and in a good place. If I'm going to swim Catalina, I cannot be obsessing about what's lurking beneath me while I'm swimming.
I rode on my bike shoes and I rode on my running shoes. Across the top says Just Breathe and Infinite Energy, because I knew those were like the two things I had to like remember. And it's funny to think, oh, just breathe. Well, of course you're breathing, but it's being connected to the breath, staying in the moment and just really calming yourself with that. And then the infinite energy, knowing no matter how tired you may be, no matter how exhausted you may be, this idea of you have this abundance of energy that you can tap into. And it's really cool to have that thought of like, I'm not going to get tired. I can keep breathing. I can keep moving forward and it's going to be okay.
Welcome to the Yogi Triathlete podcast. We are your hosts, Jess and Beej, and today we're joined by Team Yogi Triathlete members Derek Argust and Jeremy Allen. These two rock stars are just off the heels of completing a grueling and sweat-drenched IRONMAN Texas, and we're here to smack down their experiences. Derek and Jeremy, thanks so much for carving out time on your Saturday for this community. We so appreciate it, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, awesome. Happy to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're pumped. It's so great when we can hear it right from the athletes and, roll out that experience. I know these Smackdowns have helped many. And so we want to continue that messaging, just to share our knowledge and experience freely and help others who want to get to that finish line for the first time or, for the 20th time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we'll get into the race and how your days went. Actually, it's 1 week from today. We were all together in Texas, ripping up the course or whatever we were doing with that course at the time. So let's dial back. I want you both to share how you came to Yogi Triathlete, how you first came to Yogi Triathlete, and then what has your experience been since you have been part of the team? So let's start with you, Derek.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Derek Argust. I live in Alexandria, Virginia, and I have a swimming background. So I actually came to Yogi Triathlete through a somewhat circuitous route where I decided that I was going to swim Catalina, the Catalina channel, a couple of years ago. And I was talking to somebody. He's like, well, you got to check out this podcast, Yogi Triathlete. They interview a race director who swam Catalina. So I listened to the podcast, and all I heard, I was amazed by the podcast, but what really drew me in was the focus on the mind and having a calm mind. And I said, that is what I need. Anybody can train my body, but what I really need is somebody that can train my mind and get my mind to be calm and in a good place. If I'm going to swim Catalina, I cannot be obsessing about what's lurking beneath me. In fact, I think she used that term, what's lurking beneath me while I'm swimming. And so that just drew me in. I reached out to BJ, and at that point in time, Catalina was still about 3 years away from me. And I was training for Ironman Wisconsin, and I just was hooked right off the bat. And since then, so I've done Ironman Wisconsin, I've done Ironman Maryland, and I did Catalina this past September, and now I just finished Ironman Texas.
It's a pretty awesome resume. I remember that interview with Sabrina. Yeah, she's such an incredible athlete, now a mom. She actually just finished
St. George 70.3.
St. George
first
70
race back. Yeah.
Yep, 70.3 today. I love that story, and it just shows the power of these podcasts and getting this message out. So I'm glad you acted on that hit, and yeah, it's all about the mind. All about the mind.
100%. Like you say, the body does what the mind tells it to do. So the mind has to be in the right spot. And also, I've just been able to, what I've learned using a calm mind in these races, I really have brought over into my life. And so that's really what it's about. The laboratory is the race with the mind, but bringing it over into my day-to-day world and my day-to-day life has just been so impactful in a positive way.
Here.
Yeah. Thank you, Derek, for sharing that. Yeah, it was. I remember that Wisconsin race, and also you have another Ironman this year too.
Yep.
So you're doubling it up this year.
Keeping it rolling. Yeah. Some people do an Ironman for the first time and they say, "I'm never doing that again." I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum where I'm hooked. And after last week at Texas, I'm doubly hooked now. I feel motivated, inspired, so I'm ready to go.
I love it.
Love it.
Jeremy.
Yeah. Hey, thanks again for having me on here. Jeremy Allen. Currently living in Boston, Massachusetts. Originally from California, grew up there. I am an ex-professional skateboarder and was always very athletic and active for many, many years. Started kind of toying with this whole concept of Ironman back when I decided I would just run the Boston Marathon one day. I woke up and said I wanted to do the Boston Marathon and signed up for an Ironman, and that was 5 years ago. Needless to say, I completed neither of those through a stress fracture from, couch to training a lot. You get stress fractures and continued to train a lot and kind of, get used to this world of triathlon and who's in it and so on. And came across you guys, I think mainly from a podcast and social media, and connected with you guys on the run on Christmas Day for the first time, and had met you briefly once before at Super Frog, and the energy and the vibe was so great. And after getting to know you guys as kind of friends first, and I was training with other folks, and my mental stability was always the thing that was like holding me back the most. Because I had a lot of adversity over the last 5 years of races getting canceled, injuries, so on and so forth. And I kind of just, I wouldn't say wanted to give up, but I kind of did for a little while. And here's probably a good time to just say, I'm someone who suffers extremely, heavy from panic attacks, anxiety, and so on. And I'll echo the same thing. The body can be trained. Many people can train the body, and the body will do what, it's trained to do, but you can have all that. And if your head's not right, none of it's going to matter. And you're not going to get through it. So that's when I really decided, hey, if I really want to make a go at this thing and get it done, really got to focus on that energy. And, I knew you guys were the right ones to do that with. From, just, the amount of time, we spent around each other here and there. And, 5 months later after that decision, I completed my first Ironman.
So awesome. And it's so not easy. None of it is easy, right? It's a long day.
It is. It's a very long day. I mean, I did a half Ironman. I was able to get one of those done, but it doesn't compare. It's you go into the mental toolbox 9 million different times throughout the day.
That toolbox better be packed.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, Jeremy. And this was your first one, as you stated, but you've also been messaging back and forth of possibility of something.
Right. Yeah. And I'm kind of like I'm kind of like the person, my eyes are bigger than my stomach kind of person in a lot of ways. Cause I'm totally an overachiever with things, which is why I decided to sign up for a marathon and an Ironman when I'd never done an endurance sport before. Cause I was like, oh, as a professional skateboarder, I've been athletic. I can do this. Yeah. I've, in the last 5 years, I fractured my femur, herniated the discs in my neck, tore my labrum, host of other things. So yeah, I'm 51 now. I got a banged up body, but, the head gets you through.
Yeah. And you cross that finish line. With all of that, you cross the finish line. So a lot of people will be listening to that saying like, I think they can relate. They can relate to having some sort of setback and challenge and along this journey to just get to that start line. And then to see you come across the finish line has to inspire, well, at least it does for me, that you can have these things leading in. But when it comes to race day, your willpower, your mindset will get your body across that finish line. It may take an unlimited number of resources and moments where you're pulling from that mental toolbox. But that's why we have we help provide the tools in that box so that you can have them at the ready. You're going to need them constantly. And just when you think you have it like all figured out, well, there's that next thing that happens and you're going to need it again. And you both demonstrated that on race day, and you both, pulling upon this theme of challenges before, you both had stuff going on in the lead up to this Ironman. And so the preparation wasn't smooth. It wasn't like perfect. So
no, it never is.
We'll stick with you, Jeremy. Like quickly, leading into this, like it wasn't perfect. So what were you challenged with, and how did you sort of like meet yourself where you were at?
Totally. The training, as it gets ramped up, it gets to be a grind day in and day out, and you're getting closer and starting to wonder, can I actually do this? Can I actually do this? Because I'd never done it before. And of course, you mentally want to have some sort of evidence of, oh yeah, this can be done. Well, I didn't know. So there was a lot of leaps of faith over and over. And working with you, BJ, you believed. So I had to first tell myself, okay, can I believe that BJ believes? And once I could get to that part of like, I believe BJ believes, because I had complete trust in you, then I could start to believe it. And it was a constant battle with that. And I got hurt. I, stepped out one day to go for a run and pulled my calf and my lower back. I'd been wrestling with herniated discs in my low back, and that one creeped up, and I couldn't even walk, let alone run. And I remember the phone conversation. I'm like, we're in the middle of this. I'm not going to make it. There's no way. I should look for another race. And, we paused and said, hey, let's just work through this, because I want to go back to like, oh, I hurt myself before this. Here we go again. And it was a change in that mindset of like, no, this isn't the same thing. This is a new experience. This is something different, and we can navigate through this. And we worked through it, and I got better, ebbs and flows. And funny enough, and I know I mentioned this to you, the fact that I went through that injury was a blessing in disguise, because I learned very well how to be efficient at fast walking or fast run walking, which came, to be needed on race day. So there was a lot of that, a lot of mental breakdowns. Swimming's not my favorite by any means. I don't know how many times we had to have conversations about that. But no, it was not like, oh yeah, this is great. Everything's roses and everything works every day. Every day is a grind. Every day is difficult. Every day is a renewed commitment. Every day is a renewed faith in what you're doing. So
Yeah. And isn't that the Ironman experience, right? Like that's the Ironman experience. Like every swim stroke, every pedal revolution, every foot strike, it's a recommitment to what it is that you want to do, which is getting to that finish line. Derek, how about you? What kind of obstacles were you facing before you even got to the starting line?
Yeah, it's I'm 56, so my body is. Yeah, I've just come to the realization that it's just not like it was when it was 20 years old and not resilient. But BJ has always told me along the way a couple things about injuries. One, don't call it an injury, call it a sensation, because calling it an injury gives it energy, gives it a new kind of. You're really trying to minimize what that is, and you're trying to look at it in a positive way. And the other thing that BJ has always said to me is, and Jeremy, you just talked about this, is that any negative thing, quote, negative thing in your life, there's a positive upside to it. So really always be, and that is so true. Every time I've been injured, there's always been a positive component that's come out of it. Whether it be, I hurt my Achilles tendon. So BJ's like, you got to go try massage therapy. And I'm like, what, massage therapy? But I did it, and I've realized how beneficial it is. And I've continued it now. But coming up into this race, back in February, I had plantar fasciitis. I'd never experienced it before. And there was a part of me that just panicked and was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to run again. And this is horrible, horrible. But now, just working with BJ and of course going to a doctor, and I just really staying on top of it. Like as soon as I felt that sensation, I knew something was not right. So really trying to stay on top of it, really trying to do all the other things that I could. I doubled down on my bike. I started biking more. I stopped running for a full month, and I just doubled down on my bike. That was the positive. The bike is my least favorite of the three. But it's like sometimes I've always heard, you got to embrace the one sport, one of the three. You can't, I'm a swimmer, so my instinct is just to swim all the time. But no, I should swim less and bike more. So it got completely resolved. And then a couple weeks into Ironman Texas, I had my bike blew up on me on a ride, and so I had to get a new crankshaft, and then that created a little sensation in my knee. So I was just coming in with kind of this more worry. It's all that my mind was thinking about was like, can my knee make it through this entire race? But I stretched. I really tried to not think about it, and ironically, it wasn't an issue at all. And the one thing that I talked to BJ about is usually coming into the races, what you're worrying about usually is not a factor, but there are other things that become a factor that you don't really know about. So it's all about being open to what comes your way the day of the race, and being able to just be adaptable and being able to roll with it.
Yeah. And that has everything to do with, you have to train your mind to be open. You have to train your mind to be open. You can't just say like, I have an open mind and expect it to be open. You're a musician, Derek. You have to tune your instrument before you play it. And so you have to train yourself to have an open mind, which both of you guys have done, which is why you showed up at the starting line. And Derek, let's stay with you. If you would, we'd love for you to just take us through your day. And we've got some other questions we'll dig into, on the other side of that. But yeah, could you just take us through your day?
Of the day of the race. Well, I've got to tell a quick story because I felt really bad because the day before the race, we were looking in the water, and now I had just swam Catalina where there were these big sharks that I was scared of. And we saw this very long, probably 6-foot copperhead snake in the water where the swim was going to be. And I thought, well, shoot, I made it through sharks. What's the little snake going to happen? But I felt badly because I think it kind of was not a positive thing. I think Jeremy didn't think so highly of seeing a big, huge, poisonous snake in the water. Yeah. And I was taking pictures of it, and I was like, come on over here, look at the snake. So Jeremy, I do feel badly about that. I hope that didn't throw you off.
No. I mean, it's all right. But yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'm not afraid of like a lot of things, but snakes is that thing that like, it's like Indiana Jones, it's like, yeah. I'm so afraid of snakes. And And I saw that and I'm like, oh dear Lord. I'm not going to think about that anymore. I just wiped it out. I have other things I can worry about anyways.
Yeah.
That's part of our team camaraderie. Is like we ask each other to up level. We ask each other to get over our phobias, right? And there's a saying in the spiritual world, we're all just walking each other home, So Derek was your guru in that moment.
Well, at one point, my wife was with us, and she was like, "Derek, you want to like ixnay on the snake because I don't think it's doing Jeremy any good." You keep talking about it, but anyways, kudos to you, Jeremy, for pushing through that. And I didn't get bit. I don't know about you, but
I didn't see
it
any
wasn't
snakes.
a factor.
Yeah.
I didn't see any or feel any. I certainly heard weird noises, and I will admit, I was like, what do those things sound like in the water? Is it one of those things? It wasn't.
But getting back to your original question, I woke up early, ate some oatmeal. Marcia, who's my wife, who was there, she dropped me off at the transition area. I got my bike ready. There's a mile walk from the bike transition to the swim start, but it was nice. I just really enjoyed the motion and enjoyed breathing and just thinking about the race ahead. It was a very therapeutic walk for me, very calm. Again, just trying to keep thinking about what was ahead of me. I got changed into my wetsuit and I lined up. I tried to line up as close as I could to the front because it's with 3,400 people. If I get stuck behind a lot of slow swimmers, it can just be a bad day for me. So I tried to be as close as I could. They started the pros, and then I was just doing the breathing exercises that BJ tells me to do. And I was just talking to folks. And at one point I looked up and I'm like, I can't believe it. BJ is like 3 people in front of me. So I was like, excuse me. And I tapped him on the shoulder and we just had a quick little moment, good fist bump. And then we both kind of got into our zones, and then they started the race. And they were doing 4 at a time, every 10-second beep, and then 4 more would go. And so I got up there and waited, it seemed like that 10 seconds was forever. Beep, went in. And it was just, I was really calm, and it's a bit chaotic with the swim. And I've had other people ask me, are people swimming over you and stuff? And I'm like, yes, you're just colliding. It's just one of those things. And so I just tried to be as calm as possible and just did long, strong pull. That just was the cadence that was in my head. That's all I thought about, was just those 3 words. And I tried to sync it up with my stroke, and I tried to swim as straight as possible. I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of open water swimmers have, is that you're swimming zigzag. So I was just like doing the alligator eyes where you pop up and looking out in front of you at the buoys. And I just tried to swim as straight as possible. And it was a great swim. It was my best time ever. I did an hour and 2 minutes, and I come out of the water and I lay down, and they're trying to pull my wetsuit off, and it gets hung up on my ankles. I'm laying on my back in my Speedo with my legs up in the air, and this poor woman volunteer is trying to yank my Speedo off, or not my Speedo, my wetsuit, and it's hung up on my heels, and she's like, help, and she's calls for some other guy, and they finally yank it off. So let me stop there unless you want me to keep going.
No, keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Take us through.
So I grab my wetsuit and I'm running into the tent. I put on, completely change into bib shorts, get on my bike. And those first 10 miles were just really nice and easy. And I was like, oh, this is a piece of cake. And I was just like relaxed, and I was bringing in fluids as much as I could. And then you go onto this toll road, which you're doing a loop twice, which it's a 40-mile loop when you go 20 miles one way and then 20 miles back. And there was just a horrendous headwind, and you're fighting this headwind. And I remember laughing out loud once, because it was just like, I can't believe how ridiculous this headwind is. It is just, it must have been 20 to 30 miles an hour, just full on, no gusts, just complete full on. And so you're just but I just said, can I make it 10 miles? Yes, I can do 10 miles. And then I hit the 10-mile mark, and can I make it 10 more? And then eventually I hit the turnaround. And once I hit that turnaround, that headwind became a tailwind. And it was just a great moment. And a great reward, and you're just flying back. People who were watching me, they were like, well, you went from 14 miles an hour to like 25 miles an hour average with that tailwind. But I knew I was preparing myself. I, kept saying, okay, I've got to do that again. So get ready. We've got to go back and do that again. And that next 20 miles with the tailwind went by very fast. And then I did another U-turn, and I'm heading back into that wind. Like, I immediately felt the wind. But my special needs bag was coming up. So I just said, keep going to your special needs bag. I grabbed it, refilled all my water bottles. And then I said, okay, you can do this. Keep going. And I kept pushing and pushing and made it to mile 80. And then turned around again. And I was talking to myself. I said, you did it, Derek. You did this. You accomplished this. It's all downhill from here now. And I was just like so proud of myself and just so excited that I had made it through that. So then I'm going back and I'm just like, it's all downhill from here. And I made it off the toll road, and those last 12 miles, you hit the 100, the century mark, but you still have 12 more miles. And it's just like, oh my Lord, like, just get me off this bike. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I finally get off the bike, get back into transition. I put on all my running gear, and then I'm about to take off running, and I realize I still have my bike bib shorts on. And so I'm like, again, I was like, I never really thought through my transition and to the run. So unfortunately I had to change, and then I got out on the run, and I was going really fast, which they say is well, for me, it was fast. I was doing really, 9-minute miles, and I looked at my watch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to slow down. Going way, 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 way too fast. So I just talked to myself. I said, slow down, slow down, slow down. And it was really hard to kind of, stop myself. And then the run is a 3-loop course, about 8+ miles of, you do that 3 times. And the first loop, I was feeling good. I felt dialed in. I was running like a 10-minute pace. BJ, you were ahead of me, and so I at one point, when I started my second loop, I saw you were going on your third loop, and so that was great. That was a high point. I saw my wife. I saw a buddy of mine was out there. So every time I saw people in the crowd, the spectators were just amazing. I mean, it's just so much love and just support and just unconditional support. So then, going on the second loop, I started to feel a slight cramp in my right hamstring. I kind of figured out that I was a little dehydrated. So I started to stop at all the aid stations and just drink as much as possible. Really tried to rehydrate as much as possible. And then that was kind of a realization, like, okay, I don't think I can keep running for the rest of this race. So I just decided to run it, but it was fine. I just put myself, I'm just like, I'm reeling it in every mile. I'm reeling in every step. I'm one step closer. I'm going to do this. This is great. And I just tried to be in the moment and do things that BJ and Jess, you tell me to do, go back to my breath, be appreciative of the people around me, of the beautiful day, of just looking at the water. I just tried to really be fully present in that moment and not think about anything else, but just I'm so grateful that I'm here, so grateful that I'm healthy and here, this is just amazing. So I just really put myself into a positive frame of mind, and that carried me through. And eventually, and Jeremy, I saw you just as I was leaving or just about to finish, and that was a high point as well. And then you round the base, and you're coming in the home stretch, and there's lights and there's people. And it's just an amazing feeling to to cross that finish line. And, in my mind, I was like waving my arms and jumping for joy. And, but I looked at the video and I was not doing that. I just like raised my arm. Woo! And then I saw BJ at the finish line, and that was it. It was just an amazing experience. And it was great.
Yeah, I love that you use that, just this tool of gratitude. Mm-hmm. And I think gratitude is not to be confused with like positive thinking, like it's all okay. It's like, but even in the moments of when the body is hurting or so hot and humid or the calf is cramping, I've found that you can always be grateful for something, like just this.
Yes.
I'm grateful that I get to have another breath. And it reminds me that like the breath is not my right. Like it's a gift. Like I'm getting permission to live. So you can always be grateful for something. And then, when we start to fall into negativity, it's like our energy is falling, and gratitude is an amazing way to get that energy back up. There's some really cool studies around gratitude, and gratitude cannot be faked. So again, it's another thing that we need to train ourselves to do, to practice, like waking up in the morning and just realizing that, that's permission. You get permission to wake up, in an able body and go about your day. So I love that you use that, because I think that, my experience has been, it's not that I think, my experience has been, there's always something to be grateful for, even if it just brings me to a neutral space, and gets me out of like overwhelm or something that seems like a hard climb. Gratitude is a really potent tool, for sure.
Yep. And I was sincerely grateful because of the injuries, because of the things leading into it. I was sincere in my gratitude of like, I'm so happy that I'm here right now in this moment. So yeah, 100% agree.
I love it.
That's powerful. So we could talk about that all day. Jeremy, take us through your day.
Yeah, can't wait to hear about it. So excited. I was like, all day. When you're tracking an Ironman from home, I mean, I was like drinking espresso at 3 a.m. I was eating chocolate at 8 a.m. I'm like, I gotta like move my body. Everybody else is doing this massive event. But a lot of people tracking you guys all day, and just a massive accomplishment, Jeremy, your first Ironman. So please take us through.
Yeah, first one. Mine's more of like the Quentin Tarantino version of this, if you will.
Give us the skater edge.
Yeah. I mean, I was a hot mess all the way up till just about getting in the water. I'm not too proud to say it. I mean, maybe a lot of people might think like, oh, you can do these things, not that big a deal. But I think it's important to share, like, the fear, the anxiety, the frustration, all those things. I mean, I remember, standing there in that parking lot, in the darkness, starting to get my wetsuit on, still like totally freaking out. And I burst out just bawling. I'm crying, I'm sitting there talking to BJ, I'm falling apart. And I'm like, still at that moment, I'm like minutes away from starting this thing. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm like, you just have this thing of like this, the fight or flight thing. Like, I just want to go home. But again, this is why it's so important to have people in your corner that you can trust and rely on and believe in, cause you'd always get me, to like, back to, what I'm meant to be, thinking of, breathing, not letting all these thoughts infiltrate you and so on. And we had another couple there that was so amazing too, Martin and Sarah, just awesome people. They were right there next to us. They, once BJ had to go to the front to get lined up, they're helping me get my wetsuit on and helping me focus and and I just kind of got a deep breath, got in line. I said, okay, here we go. And what's kind of funny is like, I'd always have like tried these jam out songs or whatever when I'm training and all this different type of music. And I kind of latched on to an Eminem song, Lose Yourself. And I was like, oh, this is going to be like my hype song. Right. And I didn't bring my earphones in the morning. And it was so funny because they played that damn song like while we were in line. And I'm like, yo,
I remember them playing that song.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like, all right. I'm like, okay, cool. We got this. I'm in line and I'm like chomping at the bit. I'm like, let's get this. Let's do this. I get in the water. I get no more than 60 yards. I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm like, I was like people over top of people over top of people. And I'm like getting trampled. And I'm like, I can't get anywhere. I can't get going. And I'm like, I look at my watch and I'm like, it's almost 3 minutes into this thing. And I haven't even gone 60 yards. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do this. So again, like immediately hitting the water, I'm like full of doubt, full of fear, anxiety, everything else. I pulled over to a kayak and the guy's like, hey, you okay? You okay? And I'm like, I'm having a hard time catching my breath. I'm like, this whole thing. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm okay. And he's like, oh, just the first couple 100 meters trying to get your shit together. Right. And I'm like, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Because this is not uncommon. It's not uncommon what you experienced.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. I went through it with Indian Wells, but in a different way. Luckily this water was warm. But so I just sat there for a second, again, collected myself. I said, okay, and just remembering back to the training and what we talked about over and over, one stroke, then the next stroke, one stroke, the next stroke, like just get going, do the mantras, and I'm like all kinds of different mantras, the Soham, long, strong, and, all that. I think my one that I always would go to is like, I am here, I am calm. Because I have to constantly remind myself that I am calm and I can be calm and I am here. I have to be like here. Cause like I was already starting to go like, shit, I got to get through this. I got to get on the bike and okay, hold on. Yeah. You got to remember, you got to get on a bike, but you don't got to like live there. So I'm just like, okay, just keep moving forward, just one stroke, next stroke, one stroke, next stroke, mantra. And I'm going off course. I'm zigzagging all over the place. I can't see where I'm going. But BJ and I talked about it over and over. Just keep moving forward. It's like in like Saving Private Ryan, keep moving forward, it's like, and it's true. You just like, no matter how much it's really hard to tell how much distance you're gaining in these things because everybody's all over the place. It's hard to identify how far you've gone or whatever, and I can feel my watch vibrate at 500 yards, but I just keep pushing, keep going. I get to the turn buoys and I'm like, okay, I can deal with this. I'm like halfway there. I'm like, okay, we're good. And it just kept getting, a little bit easier. People are still crazy and flying over you and stuff. And it's a battle out there, but it's just the whole idea of keep going and just sticking to your spirit when all else is lost, is just keep with, the mantra and the one right after the other, one way after the other. Don't get in your head, don't decide what's happening already. You just got to keep going. And I get down there and I finally see the finish and I'm like getting close to the finish and I'm like getting like tired. I see Martin up on the bank and he's like, you're good. He's like, just stay in the middle, keep going, and he's like cheering me on from the side. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And I get down there and, they're pulling you out of the water because you kind of have to because you can't really walk up the stairs because, you stayed horizontal for a while and you're kind of disoriented. And for me, it was an hour and 37 minutes. And that was like, I was actually surprised that's all it was, and that actually turned out to be a pretty decent, swim time. And I get out of the water and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like way unsteady on my feet. You get out and you're like, you feel like you're going to fall over. And they're like, oh, you want us to help take your wetsuit off? I'm like, yes, please. And I lay down just so I could lay down. And they take the wetsuit off. And you just, I'm like, I'm not going to rush the transition. Let's just take a minute and like collect ourselves. People are rushing, but it's like, there's no need to rush. Let's just stay calm. And it's funny because like I showed this to BJ, but I rode on my bike shoes and I rode on my running shoes. Across the top says just breathe and infinite energy. Because I knew those were like the two things I had to like remember. And it's funny to think, oh, just breathe. Well, of course you're breathing, but it's being connected to the breath, staying in the moment, and just really calming yourself with that. And then the infinite energy, knowing no matter how tired you may be, no matter how exhausted you may be, and BJ can probably explain this a lot better than I could, and I'm sure he will. But this idea of you have this abundance of energy that you can tap into, And it's really cool to have that thought of like, I'm not going to get tired. I can keep breathing. I can keep moving forward, and it's going to be okay. And, you know, you get out on the bike, and just like, there's, I was saying earlier, is the first like 10 miles are nice and chill and easy. And it's like, there's a little bit of wind here and there, like, oh, this isn't that bad. And then, you get out on the Hardy Toll, and it's like, life ends. It's like, is the worst. The wind was really bad. I'm not going to lie. It was rough. It was really rough. It was probably stronger than I think people were thinking it was going to be. And we talked about this. And again, it was like, the plan was just, you just keep pedaling, hydrating, stay in aero as much as you can. You can't fight the wind. You're going to lose. So all you can do is just stay in it, keep pedaling. Don't let it get to you. Although I tell you, it gets really frustrating because I forgot like how long I was supposed to go. And I'm like, when the hell does this end? Like, you keep going and going. You're like, where do I turn around? I'm like asking people go by, do you want we turn around? Like, I don't know, man, this is terrible. And the worst is, people are getting blown off their bikes in certain areas. There was some bad crashes that day. Some really bad crashes. And there was some people that crashed, got up, kept going, and that, it was a wild time out there, and it was hot, and yeah, you're right. You get to that turnaround and you're like, oh God, it's like a breath of fresh air, and yeah, you got to do it again. And so I think a lot of people that maybe weren't trained for this just say, oh, I'm going to fly like crazy, and go 30 miles an hour. And I'm like, I could have, but I'm like, I'm not doing that. I got to do this again. I got to save my legs, and I got to get off, and I got to run a marathon, and so that's what I'm keeping in mind, like what's coming later without getting attached to it. But, being smart about what I'm doing, and not, trying to be like, oh, I went slow, I got to go fast now. Or, it's just where it was. And when I got halfway through that course, I'm like, okay, I'm at 56 miles. We're going to be okay. Just got to keep humping. And, the second time around wasn't as bad as the first, only because, I knew kind of what I was coming for. So in a lot of ways, it wasn't as bad. And, you get done with the bike and you get off that thing, and, I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to run. And you're in the changing tent, and everybody in there's like, I don't know how I'm going to run. A lot of people burned their legs out. A lot of people didn't kind of plan for what was coming. And like, I was telling people, at this point, you could walk the rest of the way and make it. Like, I can't even walk, so it's like, you got to stick to your game plan, a little bit, and for me, the day was to, complete the day. So it's like, okay, well, time to go run a marathon. And I will quantify this too, so people know, I've never swam 2.4 miles in open water in my life. I've never biked 112 miles in one sitting in my life. I've done 100 by itself, but never 112 miles. I've never ran a marathon either. I've ran 18 miles ever was my longest, but I've never ran a marathon. So I was like, okay, I guess we're going to go run a marathon now. And I'm usually pretty confident on the bike and running. And so, I get out there and cruising along in the beginning, and I'm like, I got to go slow. I got to slow this up a little bit. And I didn't realize I had chafing until, a few miles into that run. I had some chafing that I got on the bike. I didn't know I had it on the bike because, for those who don't know, you don't necessarily always make it to a bathroom when you got to go to the bathroom. And, that stuff can kind of highlight some details that you might otherwise know are there. So I was like, yowza. So tried to fix that on the fly, but it was very hot. A lot of people were, having a hard time dealing with that. And again, that's like sticking to the plan of like, okay, every aid station, ice down the back, take in water, do the gels. Like, you just became like, this like machine of like doing things, and then just sticking to, okay, let's just breathe. Let's just move along, keeping in touch with your body. And I will say that whole race, I was so in the moment the whole time, so in the moment. and usually not, but staying in the moment of what's going on and where you're at is really helpful to get you through, not daydreaming or thinking about, what you're going to do next weekend. Staying with it, staying present is really key. And I get towards the end of it. I was probably, I remember 18 miles was kind of like my thing. Cause, I was like, okay, I've ran 18 miles before, but never beyond that. I got past 18 miles. I'm like, okay, here we are in no man's land. I think I can do this now. And I got to 21 and I'm like, okay, I got this. And then I'm like, and start getting a little bit more tired. And that's like 2 or 3 miles. I think that's probably when I started seeing you, BJ and Martin, and like, you're going to do this thing, and like, again, I'll echo this. The whole community is like amazing, especially on the run, because that's where you need it. Like the support of this race is like, I mean, just super impressive all the way through, and especially on the run. Everybody's out there with signs. Everybody's partying. The Hippie Hollow thing is freaking crazy and amazing. All the people in the backwoods, with house music and lights and wild stuff going on. It's a good time. So that really keeps you pumped. And I remember getting those like last few miles, and I'm like, the last thing I want to do is crash out right here. So it's like, you can't sit back on your heels and just be like at any point thinking like, oh, I've got this, cause I started getting that feeling, and I'm like, well, let's not think I got it. Let's just keep with the program. I was hydrating till the very last second. And, you finally, come around to see that finish line, and like, wow, it was, that was, that's an experience that it changes you. It really does. All kinds of people from all walks of life complete Ironmans, from the, people who look like the pinnacle of fitness to people that, you may, judge differently, but, so many people accomplish it and get through it, and, but there's maybe 99% more of the world that doesn't. And you get there, and I visualized that finish line so many times, and you never realize what it means. And, I got across, and I was like, so emotional and everything else, and I'm feeling good. And I'm like, yeah, I just did this and this and that, and really hyped, and let's get a banana, let's get some fluid. And oh, fuck, I need medical. I was hydrated, but man, I was shaky. I lost the color in my face. I was so nauseous. It was rough. So I spent some time in medical, and again, those people are amazing. Lots of people went to medicals. You go to medical, it's no bad thing. Put your body through a big day. And that to me was like, that was the ultimate proof that your body will fucking come with you. Because like up to 5 minutes after I crossed that finish line, I felt like I was fine, and then I was in medical, and I'm like, could barely walk later on. So it's like,
yeah, it's amazing what happens when you cross that finish line, and then just everything, mind, body says, okay, we're done. Right. And then it'll immediately try and start to, get itself back to homeostasis, which a lot of times feels like you start to feel worse. It goes through its process, but it's quite amazing what the mind can do when you're willing it to get to that finish line. It's wild.
Exactly. And that's why I was like, couldn't let off at the end. And I think that's maybe what happens to people is like, when you think like, I'm good, then you find out you're not good. So it's like, just keep it all the way till the end, all the way until it's over. And, and then it was over. And then like, life is different.
Way to go, Jared. That's awesome. Congratulations. I haven't heard your story yet. So this is just amazing. Really.
5 years it took. 5 years. I signed up for Ironman California, and 3 days later I was in the hospital with a herniated neck disc. There was that culmination of all this effort and energy, all this time, just, and which is why I think there's a lot of extra kind of pressure for the day for me. And I had to let that go too, to a certain degree. But yeah, all that like finally happened. I was like, Jesus Christ. Because I was like, I remember telling BJ like months ago, like maybe it's just not meant for me to do this, and, because there was so many trials and tribulations along the way, so many.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I quit alcohol when I started training back in 2018 for the Boston Marathon and stopped for 3 years. And, I went back to drinking, more after, I, thought like, okay, maybe I can't get through all this. And it was funny. I was even drinking beer like the first week still I was training with BJ. And like, and I was like, I got to get my shit together. Like I can't be doing this. So yeah, it was a lot of things. It was a lot of things. You go through everything, but you can do it. Anyone can do it.
Yeah. So you have like, and it's so great you shared that. Like we have these thoughts, we have this evidence, we have obstacles, challenges, and they're relentless. And the thing about it is they're going to continue to keep coming, right? They keep coming in life. And our job here is to masterfully, as you guys both explain, stay present, stay in the moment, and start ticking off one by one by one by one. And this is life. Like this is the life that everybody talks about. Like I want to live that fulfilling, joyful, like amazing life. But it takes standing up to these things. Both of you had moments of challenge, not only in the lead up, but on race day as well, that you just move through to get to the other side. And so sometimes it can be overwhelming to just kind of put yourself in the outcome. Like I'm working through this. I still have to go through this. And then I want to get to that end result. But there's so much stuff along the way that is really testing our resolve and our ability to stay focused on the goal and to not feed or indulge in the thoughts of the mind. It's a really important concept and something that we work on relentlessly ourselves and with our community and team of athletes. And you both demonstrated that so beautifully last Saturday. What I want to ask you both, and we'll start with Derek, is like, from this experience that you had in Texas and everything that you were able to work through before, during, and now after, like, what's one thing that you can take away from it and apply maybe into your let's call it your regular life?
Yeah, like you said, you get intrusive thoughts everywhere in your life about it. I get intrusive thoughts about everything in my life, and so kind of like how I was saying before, doing a race is kind of you have a start, finish. It's a controlled. There's not a lot of risk involved. So if I can master it in a race scenario and then bring it over into my life, and so the more I do this, it just becomes more natural. And so now, if I'm at work or I'm in another scenario in my life, and I start having negative thoughts or things that are coming in, questioning, and am I doing the right thing? Or should I be doing things? It's having that awareness of those thoughts that are coming in and just saying, nope, I'm not. What are you guys doing? No, get out of here. And I've been able to practice that in a race scenario and really be able to. So I guess that's how I would answer the question, is just, not having anxious, negative thinking in my life is what is vital, is to get on top of that. And so, fixing it. And I do have another quick story about music, Jeremy, when I was swimming Catalina, I got stuck in a current at the very end. But up until that point, I had an REM song that was called These Days that was stuck in my head for about 12 hours. And it just was going on a loop. And it was driving me insane while I was swimming. And when I got to a really tough part of the swim, it's interesting how the mind works. My mind, it's like somebody took that record out and they put in a new song, and they put it, my mind went to Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. And it was just such a huge uplifting thing. It's a weird way how the mind works. Like I was in this really very bad spot in the middle of the, about trying to finish Catalina. And so my mind was like, hey, we're going to give you a little song to make you feel better. And Jeremy, I don't know if you remember, when we were standing there waiting, they played Uptown Funk. And
yeah, that's a good jam right there. That's
I was just I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my, I mean, I was just like smiling. I'm like, this is amazing that they're playing this song right now, and it doesn't mean anything to anybody else but to me. But anyways, when you said that about the Eminem "Lose Yourself," I totally get that.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's true. It's like we all have negative thoughts. Like we all have negative thoughts, right? Like there's been some research, like there's been a lot of research on, thoughts and things like that. But, there's been 3 things that researchers have found. Like 1, our thoughts are mostly negative. They're repetitive. Like 95% of the thoughts we're having today, we had yesterday. And for the most part, they're useless.
Totally.
And if we don't get out in front of them, and you do that through awareness, creating that space, right? And you guys have talked about it the whole time on this podcast as you took us through the day, like just be here, like be in the stroke, be in this breath. That's how you begin to create that space. And then you can get out in front of them. And the first thing you do is you learn what those tendencies of your mind is, and when I started to look, I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot more negativity in here than I ever thought possible for me. And then in that space, you get that opportunity to use your free will to calibrate yourself, like this shift. It's relentless too, because you got to shift and shift and shift and shift. And it's not just one and done. It's a constant calibration of yourself as you move through life. But I love how you explain that. And we're all going to have them, and we get better and better at being able to calibrate and being able to focus on what we want. And the gratitude, becomes easier to slide into in a real authentic way. And it hit me today. I was on the trainer and I was eating a banana, and anytime I peel open a banana, Clark comes, right? And so it's really like I have to calculate like how many calories am I giving him? I'm not getting the full calories from the banana anymore, and so I need to supplement. But as I'm feeding him the banana, I'm like, of course, because what we feed wants to be fed. I'm like, that's it, right there, the simplicity of mindset training. And it's like the whole secret to life. It's like whatever we feed is gonna come back for more. It's gonna want more. So I love how you explain that.
And the other thing to go along real quick, and is the thing that I worry the most about usually is not what happened, is not the thing that becomes the reality for me. So it's completely useless to be worrying about X, Y, Z thing. That's not going to be what actually comes into play. It's going to be something else, but I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what it is. So it's just being fully present, and then being your ability to adapt to any kind of situation or whatever adversity, or don't even look at it as adversity, look at it as an opportunity to learn and to grow, because those are the times when you do learn and grow. I mean, just biking into that wind. I mean, that was a tremendous, in the moment it was, but I mean, Jeremy, you and BJ, like we've all learned something about ourselves and our ability to handle that situation. Nobody told us it was going to be that horrible, but we took away a lot and learned about ourselves from that experience.
I love it. How about you, Jeremy? What's something that you are taking away from this experience, either that you learned about yourself or something that you feel will be helpful as you move forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's so many things. But really, it's. I mean, the Ironman experience and going through all this stuff is like a mantra for life. It's everything packed in, like with all the pain and adversity and struggle and all this stuff really condensed and uncomfortable, and being able to navigate through that and come out the other side of it, is just like, again, I say this as a life-changing experience. It really is. I mean, then this stuff isn't bullshit. It's like, this work with the mind and going through all this, mental training is everything. I talked to BJ about this, like the day after or 2 days after of this feeling I was having. And he explained it as this feeling of invincibility. And not invincible, like, oh, you can get shot by a bullet and you're fine. But just this thing of like, things just tend to not bother you as much. And you feel like, oh, I can deal with this other stuff. And it's just not as troublesome, so to speak. And not that you can rest on your laurels and be like, okay, I did that, I'm good now, everything's fine, you have to keep doing it and you have to keep working on it. But, now the proof is definitely out there. I am wildly a different person now, through all these many months of training and through going through that experience. Like I said earlier, this stuff, I suffer from panic disorder and anxiety. Much of that is very well behind me, and the stuff that is around, I have, a lot of the tools, to get past it and to get through it. And it all comes from doing this hard stuff and using your brain to do it. 'Cause to me, like the athletic portion of it and everything else is just the vehicle. But really the drive and what you get out of it is all mental. Where are we? We're beginning of May here. June of last year, I was a mess. Really was, and now it's like, it's just things are different. And it's something you can use you use it in everyday life. You really do. And that's the thing.
Yeah. I think and as we wrap this up, because Derek's got to get to a show, it's important to see, like, it's just, the finish line isn't the finish line. The finish line is kind of like the beginning. I know that's a metaphor, but it really is setting the platform and foundation for really what we inside believe life can be like. Like, can we have this invincibility? Why do I always get, angry or frustrated from something? And a lot of it has to do with our preference system and our attachment to it. And when we begin to dip into the possibility that maybe there's an easier way through life if I take ownership of the choices that I make and the feelings and reactions that I make, maybe life will be a little bit less stressful and frustrating. And that is exactly what we have experienced and practiced in our life. And this is why we're so passionate about sharing it with our community, because we can be invincible in sport and in life, but it really takes the work in training the mind to apply it to what we love to do, which is sports and performance. So the two work hand in hand. And you both demonstrated an amazing, amazing day out there. And I just want to say I'm just so honored and grateful that I was able to share the course with both of you in the days before and then afterwards at the awards ceremony and the banquet. Like, that to me, bringing the community together is really powerful. And sharing these stories with people who are listening to this podcast and they're like, whoa, it wasn't easy. Like, you did all the training and the mindset training and it still wasn't easy. No, it wasn't. But we have the tools and we have the ability to use the mind, which is a tool, to get on board and get us to that finish line that awaits. So congratulations to both of you guys.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes. The mind, friend or foe, you can use it one way or the other.
Sometimes
it wants to be your foe.
Yeah, and the other thing I got to say is you talk about community. Community is so vital in this day and age. We're so isolated with our devices and electronics. We have to be face to face and connected with each other. That is what brings us happiness and joy. And the weekend was just so amazing. Just meeting you, BJ, and Jeremy and everybody coming together and meeting all the other athletes and the support. You just felt part of this community, and the connection was incredible. It just, I can't describe that feeling of connection. And it's just so important for us to have that in our life. Important for me to have that in my life.
Yeah, it's really like unlike anything else out there, because everybody there, it's like so diverse, and so many people are just trying to like better themselves and accomplish big things. And, it's very unique and, very, very,
there are a lot
cool.
of people from different countries. I mean, the amount of international athletes that were there, I was just amazed. So it's like it gave me hope for humankind that we can all come together and do an activity and support one another, unconditional support, no competitiveness with each other. I mean, people, yes, are competitive, but they're not being, it's just love and encouragement. That's all I felt the whole weekend.
Yeah, it's our separation falls away. And I think that's what's kept me in the sport for 20 years now, is that I love that, because we are just a global family, but we get caught up in in just our alleyway of life. And so that's something, especially at Ironman, especially that distance, specifically the 140-mile distance, even over the half, is like there's something really spectacular about that. Nobody cares if you're the one that cut them off in the parking lot the day before, or what your political affiliation is. It all falls away, and we step into, that unity of who we are. And I think that that's what we all feel, and perhaps we're not able to articulate it, but we all feel it. But huge congratulations to both of you, not only for your physical training, but for stepping into the mental training that so few are really strong enough to do. And you guys are strong enough to do it, and you're doing it, and you're living it, and you're feeling the benefits and the results of it. So just, I bow to you both, and I'm so grateful to know you and to have you on the team, and for your generosity of time and everything that you just shared with the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's been great, and this whole experience, there's no other way to do it in my mind.
Well, that's what we think too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys if I don't think. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And more to come, guys. More to come.